disaster cycle, we can do things to prevent and reduce the impacts of disasters, but we can also do things to be ready, right? And to recover more quickly. So for the city specifically, when we talk about prevention, we have a fire weather protocol. So if there is hot, windy, dry weather, that means there's a risk of fire. And if that happens, what we'll end up doing is we will end up putting rangers out to keep an extra eye on areas, putting fire bans in place. Public Works won't be using power tools. So we'll do everything we can to help prevent fires. And we'll also push that messaging to you guys. So you shouldn't be mowing your lawn if there's fire weather. You shouldn't be ever putting your car on dry grass because it can ignite a fire. You should avoid barbecuing, grilling outside near dry grass all the time, but you should definitely do that when there's fire weather. Then when we talk about mitigation, can you raise your hand if you've seen our goats? All right, so we got some really cute goats, but they're not just cute. The goal of these goats is to eat up a bunch of the dry grass that can turn and worsen wildfires. So we have hand crews and we also have goats to help in the city's public areas to help us make sure we don't have too much dry vegetation that can worsen a wildfire spread. Then we have an emergency operations plan, and this plan walks through all of the things that the city needs to do to respond to an emergency. So if there is an emergency, we activate our emergency operations center, and we will push out evacuations to you through Alert South Bay. So if you get an evacuation order on the alert, you have to sign up, and we'll talk about that. But if you get an evacuation, we're pushing those out in coordination with our first responder agencies, with county law and county fire. To tell you where to go for safety, we'll be opening up emergency shelters in coordination with the Red Cross to try to provide support. We may open up resource centers. You may have seen that with the landslides, that we had a couple resource centers. We would do that closer to the end of an emergency. We may have disaster assistance centers with FEMA. So through the EOC, through our emergency operations center, we would be coordinating all of that. And then after a disaster happens, as the city goes back to normal, we would open up if the emergency is big enough, and you may have heard about this with the Palisades or Eden fires, we'll open up a long-term recovery group. And what that does is we don't recover right away. When your home burns down, you don't recover right away. It's not like the fire is gone and, oh, everything's back to normal. Absolutely not. The recovery process can be really long, and the more catastrophic the emergency, the longer it gets. So Katrina is just finishing up the recovery right now. It's been 25 years almost, and we're barely at the end of that recovery process. And honestly, even then, you still have a little mental recovery because the trauma of emergency can be devastating. So that group is really there to try to help the community recover after the emergency actual fire is gone, after it's out. Next slide, please. So walking through that fire weather protocol, we're going to increase our staff. We're going to have our park rangers doing extra patrols with the help of our public safety liaisons and our sheriff department. We will pause all of the gas-powered and high-powered electricity type of tools that could spark a fire. And we'll push out all that public messaging. So please make sure you check out our website, keep an eye on the weather as well. We'll put burn bans in place so park facilities won't allow you to use their grills, and we recommend you don't use them anyway because we don't want to spark the fire. And then we'll ban the use of drones and motorized aircrafts and close all of their turnarounds or trails or parks. And this is again to just prevent the spark, because if you guys saw with the Palisades, the weather was crazy. And one spark and it becomes uncontrollable. So we gotta stop it where we can start, right? So try to prevent the fire in the first place. Now, going to our goats, we have 230 acres that we deal with to clear up for our goats and for our hand crews. We follow fire department's guidance, and so we have any structure we have within 200 feet, it's cleared up 10 feet along the roadways. We remove all the dead vegetation, and we'll thin and trim our trees and our shrubs, and work to maintain soil stability to prevent erosion as well, because preventing a fire is one thing, but once the fire happens, now you're have an increased risk of landslides and erosion. So working to keep our soil safe. And then we also work in the preserves to remove invasive species. So certain plants that are not native to the area burn quicker and can increase the fire spread. So we're working on our end to try to remove those. Next slide, please. Now, we also adhere to California's building code, and we keep in line with our county, and you don't have to read all of this if you don't want to. Full disclaimer, I will have this online as well, but just a kind of basis for you guys. We follow Chapter 7 in RPV, so having fire-resistant structures. This applies to new buildings and any major modifications, having smoke barriers and partitions, fire-stopping material, and having specific requirements for smoke-proof and shaft enclosures. That is already built in for everywhere in RPV. Now, if you're in a very high fire severity zone, once upon a time everyone was, now it's a smaller amount of people who are. But if you are, we ask for a few extra things. So Class A fire-rated materials like fiberglass shingles, properly sealing off the ridges and metal edges of roofs, tempered glass and fire-rated windows and skylights and doors so they don't break from the fire and then cause the fire to get into your house. Ember-resistant vents and ignition-resistant or non-combustible walls. So really, things that can make your house less likely to burn. And if your house is less likely to burn, the whole community is less likely to burn. So these are the guidance that we have as far as building codes go. Now again, if your house is already built, we're not making you fix it. But if you make a major modification, you got to go up to these codes, especially if you're in a very high fire hazard severity zone. And everyone have to adhere to the stuff to the left, which is our Chapter 7 requirements. Next slide. So when we talk about city response, kind of walked you through this. We'll have our Emergency Operations Center. If you ever hear the term EOC, this is where we coordinate information and resources for a major emergency. Talked about long-term recovery. Now, if you can click 3 more times. So these 4 resources are our key way of getting information to you. We will do everything we can in every way that we can to get information to you, but Alert South Bay is our #1 way of getting information to you, and you need to sign up to be part of that, okay? So go to alertsouthbay.com, sign up for any location in the South Bay that's important to you. It doesn't just have to be your house. It can be your work, your family's house, your kid's school, whatever it might be. Sign up there, and if there is a major public safety threat to you where you have to take actions, we're going to push information on there to you. Now, you may have got those erroneous alerts previously. That's the wireless emergency alert system, so you don't need to opt in for that. We can push that anywhere, but as you can see, sometimes that doesn't go as planned. With the local emergency alerts, I'm controlling it. Our public safety manager is controlling it, or our fire chief or sheriff's captain is controlling it. It's a small amount of people who can touch that, and we only touch it when we've agreed that we need to send something to you to save your life. So definitely recommend signing up. pvpready.gov is where we go to find your evacuation zone. So if you heard the Know Your Zone campaign, make sure you know your zone. If you go to pvpready.gov, you can see a map, you can put your address, and you can see what zone you're in. But you won't just see what zone you're in. You'll see if you're actually in an evacuation warning or order. So let's say you got an erroneous alert from WIA and you're like, I'm in an evacuation order. You can go to pvpready.gov and see for yourself if you actually are. Again, this is something we have our hands directly on. So there's not going to be a mistake there because we're the ones putting it out, and we're making sure that what needs to be said is said through that sort of forum as well. You won't get an alert there. That's just a website where you can proactively find information about emergencies. And then we'll definitely use our website, our My RPV app, we'll use RPV TV, and we'll use our social media. So we'll try to blast things to you in every way we can. Now, we have recently developed a radio station, an emergency radio station. It's called 1680 AM. So if you go to your AM radio channel and put 1680, program it when you leave today. Right now, you'll hear a loop. We haven't formally pushed out the outreach for it, but it's live. And if something happened tomorrow, we're using it. So this is going to be something, we'll have signs all over the city eventually and do a really formal push out so that everyone can know about it. But this is a live station and it does not need power to run. It does not need communication to run. So if we have a major emergency, let's say we had a major earthquake that followed up with a fire, and the power is out and communication signals are out, you're not getting an alert because communication's out and the power is out. So you can't watch the TV or look up things to find where you're going. So this is our backup. This is how we're going to get information to you, even if everything is out and we have no power and no other way to communicate. And we'll push the same messaging we push through the other 3 platforms through there as well, focusing on what you need to do to stay safe.